You know how, in any game, whether it's cricket or chess, just changing one little rule can flip the entire outcome? Well, elections are a lot like that. They aren't just about politics, they're contests with a very specific set of rules. And believe me, those rules are everything when it comes to who wins and who loses.
Okay, so let's jump right in with a real head-scratcher. How in the world can a political party pull off a massive landslide victory, we're talking 80% of the seats in parliament, when less than half of the people actually voted for them? It sounds kind of broken, maybe even impossible, but it's not. It has actually happened.
And for proof, look no further than India's 1984 general election. The Congress Party got 48% of the total votes. Now that's a lot, for sure, but it's still not a majority of the country. And yet, that 48% translated into winning 415 out of 543 seats. That's a staggering 80% of the entire legislature. At the same time, other parties got millions of votes, but ended up with just a few seats to show for it. So what's going on here? What is the secret?
Well, the answer, it has a name. It's the system that runs the whole show in India's elections. It's a method called first past the post, or you'll often hear it called FPTP. This is the absolute core rule of the game.
So how does this FTPT thing actually work? Well, it's actually pretty straightforward. First, you take the whole country and slice it up into 543 different areas. We call these constituencies. Second, each one of those constituencies gets to elect just one person, a single representative. And third, this is the most important part, the candidate who gets the most votes in that area wins the seat. That's it. It's a pure winner-take-all race in every single one of those 543 districts.
Now, here is the absolute key to understanding that paradox from 1984. The winning candidate doesn't need to get a majority, more than 50% of the vote. Nope. They just need to get more votes than any other single person running. Just think about it for a second. If you've got 5 candidates in a race, and you get, say, 30% of the vote, but every other candidate gets less than that, you win. You take the seat. And all those other votes, the other 70%, they effectively vanish. They don't help elect anyone.
So that naturally leads to a pretty big question, right? What would happen if the rules were different? What would an election even look like under a totally different system? Let's take a look at the main alternative.
And that alternative is called proportional representation, or PR for short. The name kind of gives it away. The whole goal here is to make a party's number of seats in parliament directly reflect how many people voted for it nationwide. So if a party gets 20% of the national vote, it gets, you guessed it, about 20% of the seats. It's that simple. No more of those huge gaps between the votes you get and the power you have.
All right, let's put these two systems head to head. With first past the post, you're voting for a specific person in your local area. But with proportional representation, you're usually voting for a political party. This means FTP gives you one single local representative, while PR can give you several representatives from different parties who cover your region. But the real kicker, the biggest difference, is the final result. FTP can give the biggest party a huge bonus of extra seats, while PR tries to make the seats match the votes as closely as possible. So you're probably wondering, if FTPP can create these kinds of lopsided results, why on earth did India's founders choose it? Well, it wasn't a mistake. It was actually a very deliberate choice, and it was based on some really practical reasons for a brand new nation. The first, and maybe the biggest reason, was just simplicity. I mean, think about it. For a huge, diverse country with different levels of literacy, the FPTP system is incredibly easy to get. Voters just pick one candidate. That's it. No complicated formulas, no ranking your choices 1, 2, 3. Just pick one. The second big reason was the need for stability. India's founders actually thought that seat bonus we talked about was a feature, not a bug. They figured it makes it way easier for one party, or maybe a strong alliance, to win a clear majority of seats, and that leads to a stable government that can actually get things done, instead of a fractured parliament where nobody can agree on anything, which can sometimes happen in PR systems. And third, there's direct accountability. It's personal. In a system like FPTP, every voter knows exactly who their local representative is. There's a name, a face. So if you have a problem with a local road or school, you know exactly whose door to knock on. And when the next election comes around, you know who to hold accountable.
But a fair game needs more than just a rulebook. You also need some protections for all the players, and you absolutely need an impartial umpire to enforce those rules. India's constitution tried to build in both.
One of the most important safeguards was created to deal with India's long history of caste discrimination. To make sure that marginalized groups weren't just locked out of power forever, the system of reserved constituencies was created. In these specific districts, anyone can vote, but only candidates from the officially designated scheduled castes or scheduled tribes can actually run for office.
And this is no small thing. We're not talking about just a few seats here. In India's main House of Parliament, the Lok Sabha, 131 seats are reserved in total. That's 84 for scheduled castes and 47 for scheduled tribes. The whole point is to make sure their representation in government is roughly equal to their share of the population.
So who is the all-powerful umpire in this giant game? That would be the Election Commission of India. And let me tell you, this umpire has some serious power. It decides who's on the voter lists, it sets the entire election schedule, and it enforces a strict code of conduct for everyone involved. It can even take control of government employees and postpone or totally cancel an election if it thinks things aren't fair. But like with any system that's been around for a while, the story doesn't end there. Nothing's perfect, right? So there is a constant, really lively debate happening in India about whether it might be time to change the rules of the game again. And there are a ton of ideas on the table. People are asking some pretty big questions. Should India finally switch from first past the post to some kind of proportional representation? Should there be a law that says 1/3 of all elected officials have to be women to fix the huge gender gap? What about getting tough on the role of big money in politics, or even banning candidates who have criminal cases against them from running at all? These are all very real, very active debates. So, in the end, that's what it all boils down to. Is India's first-past-the-post system a really clever and practical design that puts simplicity and stability first, making it perfect for a massive, diverse country? Or do the strange distortions it creates mean that it's finally time for a major overhaul? There's no easy answer, but the future of the world's largest democracy really hangs on that question.